Recently, I was thinking of getting myself an Apple laptop. Why? Because I thought that Apple makes premium products and that it would save money which I would otherwise have to spend on Microsoft Office Suite, even though I know Apple is a price-gouging customer-preying company. What motivated my thoughts? It is clear. I am pretty well off than most of the people in my country, and therefore, I can afford to think that way. I can even afford to think that I need a Wi-Fi connection for my home, so that when my child grows up, or when my wife and child come home, we have the general internet speed for all of them to use for their own personal use, without any fear of data running out. This also runs into the experiment and education fields. My child, by virtue of having access to high-speed, quality and reliable internet, will be able to experiment much more than a child whose parents do not have the means to provide such a thing to their own children. Recently, I saw a video on YouTube that financial YouTubers have been calling poor people stupid for being poor and blaming them for making bad financial decisions that, in their opinion, had been keeping them down. Their general advice is that if only these poor people were not so stupid, they would not be in such a precarious situation at all. This is very disheartening, and as the YouTuber How Money Works put it, also disrespecting and downright dangerous for people on the verge of poverty who will now hesitate to seek help for fear of being labeled stupid. However, I have another issue with this kind of mindset. Right from my college days, I have met people who have been labeling poor people as lazy and stupid. I have heard stuff like, if only they did not splurge on cheap booze, they would be able to take care of their family and be sober enough to do better. Alcohol does you harm. This is out of question. But most of the people who have been making these remarks have been coming from privileged positions. What they call struggle is what half of my country sees as a lifetime achievement. Them having no internet and no mobile back in the day, them having to work at low salaries, never mind that it was a stable and secure government job, or a decent private job with long hours, are touted as struggles. These really are struggles, when seen from a point of some comfort. But from the vantage point of a person who has to skip a meal or has to do dangerous work like working in brick kilns or cleaning sewers by hand, or even a farmer who is dependent on the whims of the nature, which is getting more whimsical by the day thanks to climate change, just so that he can pay the rent so as to not be evicted from his house or his farm by his landlord, are struggles many of the people who call themselves middle class have never seen. I recently saw a graph on Statista, named Share of Households by Gross Annual Income across India in financial year 2021, in which I saw that only 3% of Indians have an annual salary of 3 lakh rupees, or 25,000 per month. These people were labeled as rich in the graph. From my point of view, this is decent, but not good enough. In fact, I will have to cut huge corners to sustain myself on 25,000, and I am not even getting started on the graph's real aspects yet. 97% of the Indian population has a monthly income below this rich level, and over half of the population has an income ranging from a little over $1,000 a month to $4,000 a month. Of course, this does not take into account the stuff that cannot be directly measured in terms of money, and the methodology can be flawed. But this graph, right here, is sobering. Suddenly, the measly 1,000 rupees a month subsidy by the local governments does not seem that much measly after all. Now imagine being such a person, probably a farmer, okay enough to feed yourself and your family on subsistence farming, but dependent on money to get everything else, just like everyone else. Tell me, if you had 4,000 rupees in your bank account, what will you spend it on? A high-speed internet connection, saving and investing, upskilling, buying a new blanket to protect yourself from cold because the old one has been tattered to the point that patches are not useful to hold it together anymore. Spending on your child's education, because the government schools do not provide everything, and even when they do, it is inadequate, buying medicines when you or one of your family members get sick, or paying debt the interest on which has been accumulating since forever. You are always one sickness or accident away from falling into destitution. With no possibility of savings, non-existent safety nets, and a precarious life because you cannot even afford a better work. All work against you to keep you poor. And suddenly, spending 50 rupees on an ointment that can heal your wounds a little faster or protect it from getting infected starts to feel like a luxury. And forget high speed. Any internet starts to seem like a future your children might have, but not you. Being in this situation, saving and prudent investing are not possible, nor is clearing debt because you just cannot escape it. It has become a part of you now, and your life is in the moneylender's hands. When you are poor, trying to just get through the day, having to put in long hours just so that you and your family can eat that day, the lustful pull of intoxication to pull you out of the nightmare you call life is very strong. Which is why we need to consider what puts many poor people to choose intoxication in the first place. When you are living such a life, being alive itself is taxing, and any motivation and drive to do something else is easily crushed in the daily toil. This mental exhaustion can affect you even when you are doing well in your life. Sometimes, for myriad reasons, you are simply too tired in life, and that is why even if you hate smoking and drinking, and would like people to quit, you do not have the right to lecture others over the virtues of teetotaling, because they too are trying to get through the day like you, and you never know what one might be going through, addicted or not. I have seen the ugly face of self-righteousness during the Sushant Singh suicide case when all the drug addicts who needed help were demonized as scum of the society. The way the rich people with full bellies lecture poor people on how they should organize their lives better is both sobering and nauseating. Next time you feel like handing some unwarranted free advice to someone because you have been watching too much YouTube because you can afford to, refrain from it. Extend help, not advise.